Theodor Herzl wrapped his plan for Israel in the language of safety and revival and modernity and productivity. But the entire foundation of the Israel project was colonial in structure, and he knew that. When he talked to European Jewish audiences, he talked about culture and discipline, labour and national pride. But when he wrote to other imperial leaders, like the Ottoman Sultan, the Kaiser or the British, he offered them a different story. He promised them a buffer population. His loyal settlers would stabilise the region in exchange for territory. He never said to Jewish workers, we're using the colonial joint stock model copied from the British Empire who conquered Africa and India, because you might not have gone with him then. He told you we'll have clean streets, moral cities, shorter workdays, and no poverty. It was sold as an upgrade, but it required moving you there. It required capital, legal scaffolding, and the silence of the people already on the land. That omission, that void where Palestinians should have been mentioned, the reason Albert Einstein turned down the offer of Prime Minister, because that cruel omission is where the violence begins. In a 1948 letter to the New York Times, Albert Einstein condemned the Zionist behaviour and compared it to Nazi Germany. He declined the role because of his disdain for the aggression and colonial tactics. Herzl was meticulous. He knew the East India model. He uses the same language. He praises settlers who can hold territory, but when he speaks to the Jewish working class, he uses utopian language. There's a cognitive dissonance between the plan and what people are told. The Israeli refuge and security is a lie. This was done to the Jews as well. It's for elite gain. Herzl didn't give shit about safety. Two things were happening here. The first is men like control, especially over territory and over other people's labour and over the narrative around all of that. And so he's very, very selective in his framing. It's narrative warfare against working class Jews to get them to go to Israel, because we need boots on the ground to protect oil routes, trade routes, strategic British things that are still today making our world worse. We could have had a hypersonic train that goes to Beijing by now had the British not been so obsessed with this canal. He speaks to the Jewish worker like you are sacred, but you are excluded from decision making when it comes to how Israel is structured. They say things like self-determination while using legal vehicles that create empire. They sold shares in the homeland to wealthy Wall Street bankers to come over on their holidays or send a daughter on birthright to get rid of her. They displaced the Arabs and then leave working class Jews stranded. It's not that he's a hypocrite. Far beyond it. He manipulated these people's deepest hopes and dreams and traumas to make himself rich. And he goes as far as he has to make this happen. Spiritual claims, cultural claims, even Messianic claims. The Jews believe in their faith, they believe in solidarity, they believe they're going to Israel, they'll be safe after European persecution. But the plan was made decades before Hitler in a London legal registry. If you look at Herzl's speeches and his writings, he was trying to play God with a state. He wanted to engineer an economy. He believed he knew better than anything that he could do in established countries, and talks a lot about a place where labour and finance, culture and even leisure time are all rationally planned. He believes that the Jews could build a utopia by controlling every input. He wrote about 7-hour workdays, Jewish-only labour, and moral uplift through productivity. That's why Zionism starts to sound like Anglo-Presbyterianism. He writes with almost technocratic confidence, like a social architect trying to design a Jewish utopia from scratch, one that could outperform the empires that had dominated them. And the best way for him to do that was by to use the empire's tools: private capital, legal charters, colonial finance. Early Zionist leadership sees that Europe is in decay, and he believes the Jews, if united, disciplined, financially controlled, and militarily capable, could take over the machinery. They did not hide this ambition. He writes about it in Der Judenstaat, his book, The Jewish State. He wanted Israel to be feared, admired, and efficient, and he uses words like cultural superiority. Israel uses British elites as its buffer population. It's not a refuge. It's this demented weirdo's vision for utopia, an ethno-state truly. They knew the British would fall for their language about being a loyal outpost in a region full of barbaric backwards tribes. I will say, America also did this to the British. South Africa claimed its independence. Australia sought to outmuscle and outlast its European origins. What makes a Zionist different is the claiming victimhood. It camouflages ambition inside of trauma, makes you anti-Semitic for criticizing Israel. It uses the moral legitimacy of Jewish suffering. It was never a refugee project, it was a power move, and it was designed to outlive the Western Empire. The US funds Israel, it's its narrative shield. The UN veto keeps this in place. This is a global legitimacy pipeline. Any dents in that coverage from the US make Israel far more exposed in terms of international law. But if Israel feels abandoned, it might start a regional war. It's well known for using crisis leverage. So signs of it, if it's intentionally provoking hostility in the region, is a sign, again, of concern here. So attacking Iran might be more to do with us here on TikTok breaking down the narrative shield on them. Israel's nukes and it's not signing the nuclear proliferation treaty is a hostage move. It's called the Samson option, after the biblical figure who kills himself and his enemies by bringing down the temple. There isn't a goddamn reason in the world that makes sense in 2025 for the United States federal government to send $4 billion a year in arms exports to Israel.